It's great to be here. Dan Helfrich from Deloitte Consulting. I'm here with Tierna Davidson. Tierna from the U.S. Women's National Team. Tierna of Stanford education and soccer fame. Tierna, a great female leader. Tierna, it's so fun to talk to you. Thanks for joining us.
I'm so excited to talk and to get to know each other better.
All right, Tierna, let's hop into it. I've gotten to marvel at and understand your career and your journey. And I know becoming a professional women's soccer player was not always the destination you assumed. In fact, you had many pursuits educationally and ideas about careers. How did you go through the process to actually make the decision for, at this point in your life, pursuing soccer was the right thing?
Yeah, it was kind of a up and down process. I, at first thought that I would just play soccer through college and then, find another job after that. But I think that throughout my time at Stanford, playing with such great players and having such quality coaching around me and being in an elite environment really showed me the possibilities that come with being an elite women's professional soccer player. And so I think from there I was able to understand the potential that I had and that was out there for me in the professional soccer world. And so I think that, while I have put aside the more academic side of my life, I do plan to go back to it. I have still been taking classes, but it was not a very straight path for me, but soccer definitely is one of my deepest passions, and unfortunately I won't be able to do it for the rest of my life, and so I figured that this is the best time for me to focus right now on soccer, and so that's what I'm doing.
Let's talk about decision making. I mean, talk about an inflection point. You're making a big life decision about where to take the next chapter, and at that point you're deciding between professional soccer and continuing the academic road. How does Tierna Davidson make choices? Who does she involve? Is she a trust your gut leader? Is she I talk to friends and family? Is she I seek out mentors who have more experience and have been there before? I know that's something I wrestle with big decisions. How do you do it?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a balance because ultimately, it comes down to it's a decision that is going to affect me most deeply and most personally, and it's my life, and I'm the one that has to live it for the rest of my life. So it definitely comes down to my gut feeling in the end, but I am certainly not purely a gut feeling kind of person. I do love numbers, I love facts, I love information, I love being able to gather all the information I can to make the best decision possible. So in this particular instance, it was talking to my close friends and my family, coaches that I trusted, people that had been in similar positions, and then ultimately just doing a little bit of research as to what there could be out there for me. And so I think that it's definitely difficult to parse out getting valuable opinions and information and insight from other people, and then also being able to separate their opinion and how it affects you versus like their vested interest in your future. And so there was definitely that fine line to walk, especially, if I was talking with coaches, always coaches are going to have a little bit of vested interest as to what team you stay on or your further development. And of course, my parents have a vested interest in what my future looked like. So it was definitely finding a balance between making sure that I had valuable wisdom and insight from others, but then also trusting what I felt was right and what I wanted to do.
So Tierna, I love that you said you love facts. Well, one of the facts about you and the women's national team, and particularly the last World Cup team, the successful last World Cup team, is that you factually were the youngest and the least experienced player on the team. I'm curious what lessons you learned about that, because for most of your career, you're the best player, one of the best players, you're a leader, and you become on the women's national team, perhaps in many people's eyes, the lower person on the totem pole. How did that environment change the way you thought about leadership, and how do you adjust your leadership style depending on the role you play in a particular team?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for a lot of my time with the national team, it has been really closely tied with learning as much as I can and absorbing as much as I can from the veteran players, because we have such a great roster with so many fantastic players, both on and off the field, both as like humans and as athletes, that I feel that this time right now is so important for me to learn as much as I can about the game, about how to conduct yourself in and out of the field, about how to lead, and about how to make my career as long as and as successful as possible. And so I think that part of your growth as an athlete is moving into different teams and kind of working your way up that totem pole, as you mentioned. And so I think that for me, you have to start at the bottom, you got to start somewhere. And so as a young player, as an inexperienced player, you start by taking in as much as you can, just being a sponge, learning from people that play your position, learning from the oldest players on the team, and then also just trying to, make those connections and really cement your place in the team, both as a decent player and then also as an important part of the team and its vibrance and its life.
We'll call you way better than a decent player. We'll call me a decent player in my soccer career. But as I reflect back, I really say that I think I grew more as a leader. I developed more confidence as a leader. I developed the ability to deal with adversity more as a leader through being a captain and being a member of competitive soccer teams than any leadership class I've ever taken, book I've ever read, or other professional experience I've been in. And so I'm curious, as you reflect on your own journey as a leader, which like all of us is still continuing, what do you think the biggest lessons that you've learned so far that shape how you think about leadership?
I think one of the most important things that I've learned as a leader, as you said, both being one of the better players and one of the more important players on a team, and then also being one of the younger, lower on the totem pole, is the importance of taking into account people's opinions in different positions, because what someone wants or what someone thinks is best for the team in a position of high power, in a position of influence, is going to be very different than someone who's just entered the team, who doesn't have a lot of say. And it's important to seek out those voices, because people don't always feel the confidence or feel comfortable with stepping up and speaking. And so being able to go out into your team and seek those opinions and seek those words, because often people have great insight, but they just aren't given the platform to voice those insights. And so that's one of the most important things that I've learned as a leader. I think that some of the players on the national team do that incredibly well, are incredibly welcoming of younger players, of newer players, and making sure that their voices are heard and they feel comfortable in the environment, which I think is so incredibly important in building a successful team.
So let's talk about culture, which is underlying a lot of the comments you've made. How would you describe the culture of the U.S. women's national team?
I would say the culture is holding players to the highest standard and demanding the most of players and yourself, while also knowing that every single player on the field will have your back to the last moment. I think that's something that is very unique to our team, at least at the international level, is that we don't quit when things get tough. If we're losing a game, if the momentum is swung in favor of our opponents, like, we will dig it out for every single person on the team, no matter what is happening. And I think that's so incredibly important, especially in long tournaments like a World Cup. Like, you're not going to be on top every single moment of a tournament or every single moment of games. And I think that's something that's very unique to our team, is the camaraderie that we build, even though, most of the year we're not even playing together, we're playing on our own separate club teams. I think that the trust that we have in each other is so profound, and I think that leads to a lot of our success.
So companies, Tierna, organizations all over the world are talking a lot about inclusive culture now. I'm curious, as you reflect on the best teams you've been on at any stage of your career, how tangible, how important is this element of inclusion in the cultures you've experienced?
Inclusion is incredibly important because the reality is that it's very difficult to perform as a member of a team if you don't feel comfortable or if you don't feel like you have the confidence of your teammates. And it's very hard to feel comfortable if you don't feel very included. And so it's really this catch-22 is that in order to perform, you have to have that confidence from your teammates. And, in a way, you have to earn that confidence by performing well. So I think that this feeling of inclusion is so important with teams because that's really the best way to get the most out of every team member. And ultimately, as a team, that's what you want to do. That's what you strive for, is to get the maximum benefit from each person.
Love it. So Tierna, dial the movie back to Tierna as a 13-year-old, if that's possible, and tell me what you thought of the U.S. women's national team at that point in your life, and then now being an actual part of it, what you think of it and how that difference manifests.
When I was 13, that team was an absolute just whole class of role models for me. It was so fun to be able to have people to look up to and have people in positions that you maybe want to be in one day, and be able to see them on TV and say, I could be that someday, or look at these amazing badass women doing what I love to do. And so it was so fun to be able to watch their games, to be able to watch the Women's World Cup and to watch them win in 2015. So it's really surreal the first time that that you go to a camp and you meet your role models. Meeting all of the players that I had watched on TV for so long and had watched at Stanford as well was really quite surreal. But then as you get to know them, you realize that everybody is just a normal person and everyone has their own journey and their lives and their own ups and downs. And so I think that's actually something that's really special to me, is being able to learn that, no one's trajectory is just a straight line up. It's up and down, and there have been hardships in everyone's lives, and to be able to learn all those intricacies and appreciate the person and the player that much more is really special to me.
Has it hit you that you're a badass female role model for 13-year-old girls around the country now? Is that surreal?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I don't go around living my daily life thinking, there's people watching me on TV or following me on social media that love me and look up to me. But when I get messages from people, or when I get to meet some fans, it's so great to be able to see the impact that we have on these people's lives, and to be able to be that role model for them, like so many players were for me when I was young, is really awesome.
So let's talk about that impact and a little bit about being a public face, and in the case of the women's national team, a public team that matters. I mean, the women's national team's had a long history, I think an incredibly proud and rich history of advocating for equality, whether that's equality around human rights, LGBTQ plus rights, pay equity, etc. Just reflect for a second on what you've observed about using the voice for good and using the voice for change, how you've seen the team up close and personal do that over the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, that was something that I was really deeply impacted by when I first kind of came into this team, is how strong these women were and how empowered they felt by their platform, to use it for good and to use it for change. I don't think anybody on the team is satisfied with just being a player. I think everybody on the team strives to make the biggest impact they can, both on and off the field. And obviously, as you said, that comes with fighting for rights, in human rights, fighting for pay equity, and a plethora of other things. And I think that sometimes movements come and it's a fad, and people take it and say, I'm going to use this movement to grow my viewership or something like that. But I think that, a lot of our players are really committed to change, which has been so great to see and has set such a great example for the younger players. So I think as younger players now, we understand the importance of being on this team and the platform that we're given. And we understand that we need to, take the torch from the veterans and continue to push for equality on all fronts.
At Deloitte, and certainly with our clients, we talk a lot about this notion of career sponsorship, which when you boil it down is about having people in your life that believe in you, they advocate for you when you're there and when you're not there, and sometimes they give you this belief about what you can accomplish that maybe you don't even have yourself. And I know I've heard you talk about club soccer coaches in your very early days and how they've impacted you, but reflect maybe on the sponsorship you've had in your soccer journey and whether you think it may parallel this concept of career sponsorship that so many experience.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that a lot of the coaches that I've worked with, I've been very lucky to have coaches that really care about my development individually and collectively with the team that I am currently on. And I think that that's one of the most special things about the coaches that I've had is that they care not only about the immediate benefit and success they can get from me, but also about how I can continue to improve and benefit and succeed with other teams far into the future. And so I think that that's a large key to success in any business, in any career, is to have people that do constantly advocate for you and also push you, because sometimes it's hard to see where you need to improve or how you could get better, and to have someone there to be honest with you but to also be encouraging is extremely helpful.
Tierna, one of the things that has really drawn Deloitte and frankly drawn me personally to She Believes is this true commitment to developing the next generation of female leaders, of putting female empowerment front and center as we not only impact future athletes, but future young girls and young women all around the world and inspire them. I'd love some reflections around how She Believes and how the platform for female empowerment hits you personally and the responsibility it makes you feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I have been raised to believe that women are extremely strong and can do anything that a man can do. I have a wonderful role model in my mother who has been a very successful businesswoman my whole life. And so I love the She Believes tournament and the message that it has. I also love that we're encouraging girls to be successful and to be empowered in any industry, in any field. It's not just with sports, it's in business, it's all over the place. And so I think that's something that I really love personally about She Believes is the message of empowerment that is so widespread, and that it doesn't just have to be a really strong female athlete, but it also can be an outspoken activist, or a really intelligent scientist, or a successful businesswoman. Like a strong woman can come in so many shapes and sizes, and it doesn't just have to be in sport. And I think that's something that the She Believes tournament really tries to push, especially when we have the She Believes Summit, and we're able to see so many great women come and speak. But that's something that I really love about this tournament.
Tierna, let's be clear. In many ways, women can be and are much more than men. So I'll pick at your comment a little bit there. So final reflection on female empowerment and on goal setting. I'm curious, as you think about your journey, which has been a hugely successful one academically, a hugely successful one soccer-wise, how do you think goal setting has played a role in that, and what lessons does that give you that you think might apply to girls and young women all around the world?
Yeah, I think goal setting is incredibly important. It gives you some tangibles and allows you to quantify a little bit your journey. And for me, that's really helpful because, as I said, I'm a big numbers person and facts person. I like to see results, and I like to be able to track things. So I think goal setting has been something that's very helpful in my path and my journey. Goal setting can be difficult, and it can be hard to get it right. And there's actually a lot of research going into how to set goals that are actually achievable and actually help you move forward. And so to be able to set long-term goals, but then also set short-term steps in order to achieve that goal has been something that's very helpful to me. So, it might be, I want to achieve X GPA, so I need to take X, Y, and Z classes and get these grades in these classes in order to achieve that. Or, I want to make the national team, so I need to have these goals set in place in order to achieve that ultimate goal. And so I think that goal setting is super, super helpful for me personally. It can look very different for a lot of people, but it's something that I think is incredibly helpful in order to really plan and to be able to see the tangible successes, whether small or big, which is really rewarding in the long term.
Tierna, I'm going to assume you have a bunch of near and long-term soccer goals that include individual goals, team-oriented goals around things like the Olympics and future World Cups. I wonder if you could give us insight into a non-soccer goal, something that Tierna Davidson is thinking about going forward that has nothing to do with soccer. Short-term, medium, long-term, just curious.
As I said, I'm really passionate about education, and I think especially with this year, with all of the social justice that we've been seeing, and all of the uprising that we've been seeing, I am really excited and empowered to get into Chicago and to get into all the communities in Chicago and to improve the educational system, and to really inspire children in Chicago. It's been a little bit hard to put something together right now because it's not safe right now for all of us to get together and to get in front of kids and to really encourage them in that way. But at Chicago, we do have something in the works that I'm very excited about. But yeah, for me, long term, one of my big goals is to affect change in the educational system, and right now I want to do that in Chicago.
All right, Dan Helfrich with Deloitte Consulting back with two great leaders. Allison Johansus, a former professional soccer player and now a Deloitte consultant, and her partner Tierna Davidson, still a professional soccer player and an important member of the U.S. women's national team. It is so great to be with both of you.
Hi, Dan. It's great to be here with you today.
I'd love to start a conversation about female leadership. And the facts are pretty stark, right? We have, interestingly, 80% of the most successful female executives played competitive sports. So that's interesting. Half of the U.S. workforce approximately is female. And yet only 5% of the largest organization CEOs are female. I'm curious, and maybe Allison, start with you on your reflections of that data, but more importantly, as you think about what lessons from your sports career you've applied as you're growing as a leader.
Yeah, I think the statistics you just shared are a little bit stark and a little bit disappointing, just because I think that there shouldn't be that type of gender discrepancy at the highest level of leadership. I myself have been really fortunate enough to have had really strong female leaders throughout my life, kind of set that bar high for me and let me know that I can achieve anything and I can achieve that highest level, whether that be in business or in sport. I think that throughout my sports career, some of the things that you learn as a competitive athlete and things that you learn to overcome translate really well to the business world. You really learn how to deal with loss. You learn how to deal with setbacks, things that might ruffle your feathers, but you have to continue to stay focused on the task at hand and kind of push through and persevere. Those kinds of things, I think, translate really well to a business setting, and I think kind of those things correlate perhaps to women who played sports at a younger age being able to push through potential barriers in the business world, and that's why you see that 80% number of leaders having played sports competitively.
Tierna, any observations?
No, I think Allison put it really well. A lot of what you learn as an athlete, and especially as a female athlete, is a lot of intangibles, how to deal with failure, how to work with people that you may not necessarily want to be friends with, and how to create a team environment that's welcoming and beneficial to all. So, no, I think she pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
Love it. Okay, so perhaps one of 2020's most utilized words is resilience. And I'm curious, as you reflect on each of your careers, and Tierna, we'll start with you as a soccer player, then Allison, go with you as a consultant. What lessons have you drawn from the concept of resilience that have helped you navigate all the complexities of 2020, including the coronavirus pandemic?
Yeah, this year has been unprecedented. I think another word used really frequently. But I think that as an athlete, you never want to be in the position where you don't get a lot of time on the field, or you don't get to be around your teammates a lot. But I think that something that Allison and I both know well is the feeling of being very isolated from your team when you're injured. And both of us have had our share of injuries, and both of us have had our share of having to, work with a physical therapist or work with a trainer as opposed to being out on the field and not being able to see your teammates very much, having to go to doctor's appointments, not being able to celebrate the wins on the field. And I think that's something that is really difficult to work through, and it's hard, but you learn how to connect with your teammates in a different way that's not through a soccer ball, and it's not through being able to be physically on the field with them. And I think that's translated really well, because this year we haven't been able to be together as much as we would have liked. We haven't been able to be on the field playing games as much as we would have liked, but we've had to find different ways to connect and to support each other through the many difficult times that we've had this year. And so I think that, learning how to be humans first to each other and teammates second is something that's quite important this year.
Yeah, and then from the consulting perspective, I think that, the firm itself has shown lots of signs of resiliency. A lot of my teammates on my client projects have shown tremendous resiliency working to help our clients regardless of the virtual delivery, regardless of technical difficulties, at-home Wi-Fi failures, people being in different time zones, coordinating across all those efforts, and still being able to deliver a really, incredible project and outcome for our clients has been tremendous, despite all of these hurdles that we've had to overcome as a team. And it goes back to controlling the controllables and focusing on the goals at hand, and that's something that I think is kind of a really big cornerstone to my mentality when I was an athlete and then now in business. And there are circumstances outside of our control basically in every moment of our life, and understanding that you need to compartmentalize that and focus on only the things that you have the ability to change and make a difference in, has really allowed, specifically my client team, to be super resilient and adapt and adjust to changing needs of our own and our home life and at the client as well.
So if I reflect on my own life, I've been new a lot. My family moved around a lot when I was a kid, so I was new to a neighborhood or a city. I was on many different teams like you, Tierna, and so I was new to teams. Each of you's been new to teams a bunch in the last couple of years. Tierna, you've been new to several teams, including the women's national team in Chicago when you joined the league. Allison, you're new to a Deloitte team in a brand new profession for you. I'm curious, have you ever felt that, oh, this is uncomfortable, this is daunting as the new person on the team? And then how have you navigated that moment? Maybe Allison, starting from you, given the jump from soccer in school into a new team at Deloitte.
Yeah, transitioning from school and soccer, into my first career in the corporate world was a bit daunting at first, thinking about first picking out a wardrobe and then figuring out how to, make friends and move forward. But I think something really special about joining Deloitte and joining kind of the firm at the time that I did was that we had a start class of new analysts. So it was kind of like going to college and meeting your friends for the first time. Like everyone's a freshman, everyone's new, everyone is looking for a friend. And so that made the transition really seamless because everyone was trying to figure things out together. And from there, the biggest transition point was getting on the first project team and being introduced to a larger group of people who are at different levels of the firm, and have been, some of them, here for 20 plus years. And I think for me, being authentic and honest going into new situations has always proved to be very successful, because kind of trying to connect with someone on the most human level allows people to, be comfortable and open up, maybe outside of what they normally would do. So for me, I really enjoy connecting with people and talking to people, and I think that's what drew me to consulting in the first place. And then once I got here, the connections I've made at Deloitte and the people of the firm really made that transition easy. People were extremely welcoming and really embraced me and got me caught up to speed right away on every new team that I've been a part of, and that really made all the difference.
Yeah, I think for me, AJ and I have very different experiences coming into new groups. She's very outgoing, as she said. She likes to connect with people. I am definitely much more of an introvert, but I think that something that I have been really lucky to experience is each new team that I've moved to has a really welcoming group of women to meet me there. And, it just takes saying one thing while we're in line for a drill and someone laughs at it and you're like, all right, I'm in just a little bit, just to have some of that little locker room banter, but to have those moments, before practice, after practice, where we get to talk, where we get to know each other a little bit better, and then eventually, even outside of the stadium, being able to get together for drinks or to be able to, have meals together, and really connect with everybody off the field has been something that I've found really important in my journey with making lasting connections on teams. Obviously, at Stanford, that was quite easy because the nature of being an athlete in college is you spend a lot of time with your teammates, whether it be in classes, in office hours, eating meals together. And it's definitely proved very different at the pro level because often people have children or people have partners, everyone has lives. I definitely felt a little bit nervous at first because I was the youngest player on the team. But everybody was incredibly welcoming, and coaching staff included, and so that really made my transition easy.
All right, so let's talk for a second about well-being and how each of you manages your own well-being. It's something that I spend a lot of time focused on. I'm sure you do, right? It's your mental well-being, it's your physical well-being, it's managing your demanding careers with your lives and your relationships outside of work. It's hectic work schedules and travel schedules. So I'm really curious, what degree of planning and intentionality goes into your management of your well-being? Are you a multi-year planner, a multi-month planner, a multi-hour planner? And I'm curious if the two of you are different, but Tierna, maybe I'll start with you.
I mean, what's kind of wild is my well-being frequently comes from soccer. Like, my escape and my release of stress is going out to the field and playing with my teammates. But that's a little bit of a catch-22 because a lot of my stress also ends up coming from soccer because that is my career, that's my job, and it can be very stressful. But I mean, however far my coach plans out our schedule on iCalendar is however far I can plan out my mental well-being, I suppose. But definitely there is a balance between finding my well-being through my career and then also finding it in my relationships with people. I think that's something that is really helpful to me is, let's say it's been a really hard week, and, I need to not think about soccer for a little bit. Being able to talk with friends and maybe get dinner or go out for a walk with friends or something is just something that I really cherish, and being able to take my mind off things. And so I think that keeping my circle close has been really beneficial to me, because since I move around so much, sometimes it's really difficult to stay in contact with friends that aren't physically where I am as well. And so to have a few trusted friends that I can call up when I need them, or, can just get together really quick and we can have conversation like nothing has changed, I think is really helpful for my mental well-being. So I can't say that I'm a monthly, yearly planner in that sort of way, but I think I'm able to address the stress or compartmentalize it. It's one of the two. So yeah, that's how I handle my mental well-being.
For me, well-being is kind of brought right in to the client team. I'm one of two well-being co-leads. We plan events. We do happy hours, game nights, lunch and learns, and we also have instituted a lunch break on our client team when we can. So we all coordinate with one another, hey, I'm gonna disconnect for 30 minutes, an hour maybe. If something comes up urgently, call me, but I'll plan to be back online in an hour. And that really has helped everyone out, because we're so tied to our screens and our devices. It's really great in the middle of the day to be able to go out, get some fresh air, take your dog for a walk, do any of those sort of things, and come back in the afternoon refreshed and kind of ready to hit the ground running. And then I've been really lucky to take advantage of the Deloitte Wellbeing Subsidy and got really into golf this year. Picked up the golf clubs in March, transitioning out of soccer after all my knee injuries, and have really taken advantage of that subsidy on those green fees, and getting out there as much as I can on the weekends. Just have really found that's a great way to disconnect and enjoy nature, albeit somewhat man-made. It is still really beautiful to be out there and enjoy the fresh air.
One of the things that become really clear to me this year, at least, is this notion of bringing your authentic self to work, or bringing your authentic self to wherever you are every day, is really important, and actually a lot more difficult than it may appear on the surface. I'm curious, as you reflect on the best teams you've ever been a part of, and Tierna, I'll start with you, how important is authenticity to the spirit of that team?
I think it's incredibly important. I think, as I mentioned previously, the trust factor being such an important part of team camaraderie and ultimately team success. Authenticity is so important, because it's very difficult to trust somebody fully if you don't think you know them well, or if you don't think that they're portraying their authentic self, because it's very difficult to kind of get a read on somebody if they're trying to portray a certain way, or whatever it might be. So I think that authenticity is so important, just because the level of trust that we have to put into our teammates and they have to put into us. I think that without authenticity, it's very difficult to kind of cultivate that chemistry and to really bring your team to the level that you'd like to, kind of mentally and emotionally. And while a lot of people like to think about athletes as robots, as performers, realistically, we have to have that mental and emotional connection to each other in order to feel that trust, and authenticity is such a big part of that.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I really think that being your authentic self is something that really elevates the teams that I've been on, because there is a level of transparency and honesty that allows people to kind of break down barriers and really lean in more so than they would otherwise. And I also think that being your authentic self allows people kind of to identify what roles are best suited for each other on a team and really leverage that to the best of their abilities. For example, as Tierna said, she's more of an introvert than I am. I really enjoy talking and presenting. So if we were on a team together, I might, be informed to take more of that role on as the presenter, and she would be more supporting, and she's really analytical and great at that kind of thing. So I think that a lot of times when people are able to bring themselves to work, those nuances of personality and strengths fall into place much quicker, and the team is able to, achieve their goals and, deliver their projects, at a quicker rate and even to a higher degree of success, because everyone is doing exactly what their, strengths are and playing to those.
So AJ, other than a well-being subsidy that allows you to start becoming a great golfer, why should the next generation of female leaders strongly consider starting a career with Deloitte?
I think the next generation of female leaders should consider starting their career with Deloitte because there is opportunity across various industries, across various delivery models, types of implementations, as well as a plethora of incredible mentors at the firm of all genders. And Deloitte really allows you to create your own path. There's a bit of an entrepreneurial aspect of identifying what industries you want to work in and what teams you best work with, and you as the employee are empowered to make those choices and network within the firm. And networking within a firm is much nicer than networking in the real world, because people within Deloitte are incentivized to, interact with you and help with you, because they also want all sorts of talent on their teams and their projects. So I have had such an incredible journey thus far at the firm, being able to work on some incredible and innovative projects for clients across healthcare, technology, real estate, and more. And I think that another thing that Deloitte does is use quantitative metrics to help put people in the right positions and put people into new roles. And I think that is also a really important factor to understand, that there is fairness baked into how you're evaluated, and that they're trying to eliminate bias in all ways possible to help push women forward and into those leadership roles.
All right, let the record show that AJ, I think, said life at Deloitte is better than in the real world. So we'll take that. Tierna, for you, you aren't a full-time member of the Deloitte team, but you have a pretty up-close glimpse into our culture and what we're like. I'm curious, from your vantage point, how would you describe Deloitte's culture, and how would you describe what you've seen, at least, in terms of Deloitte's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, I mean, it seems really inclusive, and it seems like it's the company is a living body, and it changes to adapt and to welcome and to nurture each new member of the company. I think that being such a large business, it's very easy to forget about the lower members on the totem pole. But AJ just coming in this year, it seems like she's been welcomed with open arms and has had all these opportunities that I think it's rare to see such a large company offer to its new employees. And so I think that in terms of inclusion, the culture is fantastic. And I think that your guys' commitment to diversity and to equity and to empowerment of all of your employees is great. I've seen that through your guys' partnership with the national team, because I think as the national team we stand for a lot of those values, and I think that you guys share those values. And so, to continue to help sponsor the She Believes tournament and the summit and all of the programming around that tournament is so great to be able to get those fantastic women, those powerful women in front of young women and people aspiring to be in those similar positions. So I have had a little bit of an insight with Allison, and it seems like it's a great company. So while I can't work there right now, I would love to.
So Tierna, when you hang your cleats up, which is going to happen at some point, and hopefully that's a long way away, and many titles and trophies and great experiences to come. But other than becoming a consultant or an accountant, which I know would be highest on your list, what kinds of things can you imagine yourself doing when the soccer career has reached its logical conclusion?
Well, honestly, something that I've dreamed of doing, I don't know if I'll ever get to that, is I really want to own a team. I really want to be able to be involved in soccer in a personal way, but also be kind of on the business management side of it. But I do definitely see myself being involved in soccer in that way, just because it has always been such a large part of my life and I do know it quite well. However, I don't know where I would get that capital to afford a team. So I think, either someone's going to have to move up pretty quickly.
Put me on that promotion track right away.
But I really would like to get into kind of the business and management side of soccer, whether that be maybe in the EPL or somewhere abroad. I would like to explore that.
All right, well, Tierna, your and my retirement timelines might line up decently, and I have a little bit of that aspiration as well. So we'll talk offline and see if we can combine forces on that.
All right, perfect.